Hi, it's Leahz, and the Economist magazine cover that you see on my screen, well, this is part of it, not the whole thing, was going viral on the internet earlier this year in January when it came out. Now, the Economist magazine is a global elitist Illuminati magazine, and of course, Economist, it has to do with the economy, money, and so forth. Well, as I mentioned, it was going viral and circulating left and right all over the internet back earlier this year. But now it is once again circulating over something specific that's on it that has to do with some possible dates. Now, I will say in advance for all my trolls who love to troll me and say that I put dates on things, I'm not putting a date on anything. I'm showing you what is being said about some dates that we should watch, pray about, and keep in the back of our minds. That's what I do. So that's what I'm going to do. As for myself, I don't know what will happen, if anything, on those dates. This is all speculation. I think that this particular cover is very obvious in that they are giving us a message. It's very chilling, like I said. So we're going to focus on this right here that you see on the screen, 11.5, 11.3, and these arrows that are in the ground. Also, this Cheshire cat will be mentioned. And now I have not seen this anywhere. I'm not saying that no one else has posted about it. They could have. Maybe I haven't seen it. But I also felt led to do a little research on Spider-Man and why we're seeing Spider-Man with, you can see like a motion blur around his foot as if he's kicking the president of China in the stomach. So I found that quite interesting. So I did some in-depth research on that, and wait till you see what I found. And wait till you see what others have found in relation to 11.5, 11.3 on these arrows. So we're going to discuss those things. Now, the video I did back earlier this year on this covers some other aspects of this magazine cover that also reveals some possible Illuminati messages. Okay, so I will post that video in my article that I'm going to be doing on this on Before It's News. You can find the link below this video in the About section. So let's move forward. First, I want to cover this issue about Spider-Man because that's some information that you might not have seen yet on the internet. As I said, I didn't find anything mentioning Spider-Man, okay? And I want to share with you what I found. Next year in November, a movie is supposed to be released about Spider-Man, okay? And wait till you see, I've got it highlighted there, what they say about it. It's called Sinister Six. Okay, and that is to be released in November of 2016. Now, the most interesting point I found, there were others, but I'm only going to mention to you the most obvious. It says the six. Now, we know that the number 6 is associated with end times prophecy. 6 is the number of man. 6, 60, or 666 is the mark of the beast. They use the number 6 here. The 6, including a resurrected Dr. Octopus, were later regathered for an elaborate yet ultimately futile plot to destroy Spider-Man and gain immeasurable wealth by destroying the world's monetary system. Okay, this is about the plot of this movie called The Sinister Six, a Spider-Man movie. Now, I believe I looked around and I couldn't get the exact date of its release, but there's another Spider-Man movie that is to be released. Let me show you that one. It's called The Amazing Spider-Man 3. Now, some articles say 2017, but the majority of what I found said 2018. Now, wait till you hear what this movie is about. The overall plot of this movie is about resurrection, which according to this article is way out of character for Spider-Man. It says Peter Parker would have become a mad scientist for the third film, dabbling in the completely and totally super safe practice of resurrecting the dead. And what's even weirder is that he would have succeeded. That's really weird. It really makes you wonder if someone saw this idea and immediately signed the papers with Marvel because of it. Now, the author of this article also writes, I'm all for resurrecting characters. Comics do it all the time. And since this is a film based on a comic book character, it's totally plausible. But having Spider-Man create some miracle potion that brings back the dead is just odd. Not to mention, really out of character. I mean, he may be good at science, but even Peter isn't a miracle or a gravedigger, to be honest. So kind of strange that they would do something that's really out of character, okay, which is Peter Parker creating some miracle potion that resurrects people from the dead. Now, as I said, the majority of things I came across said that this movie is to be released in 2018. Originally, it was going to be released in 2017, but from what I read, they put it off because of this Sinister Six that they want released before that. So, kind of interesting. Now, we know that the Antichrist gets a wound to the head, and then he comes back to life or is resurrected, and that is when he actually becomes the Antichrist, because that's when Satan enters into him. Now, if that were the case, because we know that that happens at the 3.5-year marker of the tribulation, then that would mean that something else would have to happen soon. That would mean that the beginning of the tribulation would have to happen fairly soon for that to be, significant. Or maybe that movie comes out first and something like that's going to happen afterward. I don't know. I don't know anything about that, to be honest. I just know that I found that very strange, that this movie has to do with people being resurrected. And I know that the Antichrist will be resurrected. So very strange. The strangest was the Sinister Six information I gave you, particularly because the bad guys in it are trying to gain immeasurable wealth by destroying the world's monetary system. And this movie comes out in November of 2016. So that's something I've not seen reported anywhere. If you've seen it, I haven't. So I've not seen anything on why Spider-Man is on the cover of this global elitist magazine. Again, he appears to be kicking the president of China's stomach. We can see the motion blur right there of his foot. His feet are in the stomach. Okay, and we know that China plays a huge role in our global economy. Now, we're also going to mention the situation about German Chancellor Angela Merkel's hands here. There's actually a real photograph of her in France with the same hand pose that you see. That is a Luciferian hand signal. All right, so I'm going to show you that as well. But most interesting I found was that Spider-Man is at the front of everyone here, appearing to be kicking the Chinese president in the stomach. Okay, now if you don't know his name is Xi Jinping. Okay, so that's President of China, Xi Jinping. It says here on Michael Snyder's website, End of the American Dream, have the elite warned us that November the 3rd and November the 5th will be particularly important dates. The Economist has very close ties to the Rothschild banking dynasty of Europe, and it has been a well-known mouthpiece for the global elite for decades. That is why all of the weird imagery that was used on the cover of the January 2015 issue made so many headlines when it first came out. The elite often like to foreshadow what they intend to do in advance, and many were trying to decipher what many of the cryptic symbols might mean. For those who have not seen it yet, here is the full cover, and you see the full cover right there. Now, there is something I found out, and it was a while back, but the Luciferian global elitists, because they worship Satan, they have an oath with Satan because Satan is their master. They worship him, and Satan has an oath with God. This is what they say, and what I've researched, what I found out. They have a pact with God that before they destroy or kill, they have to warn. Now, there's several reasons they warn. Okay, number one, They do this because they like to show off and throw their weight around. It's kind of like a mocking type of a thing, showing us what they're going to do before they do it, so that when it happens and everybody is unprepared, then they laugh. Secondly, the other reason is because they have to, but they don't want to come out and tell us because, well, if they told everybody in an obvious manner, hey, on 9/11, we're going to bomb or cause the Twin Towers to be bombed. I mean, there was messages in all sorts of media, including Back to the Future, about 9/11. And to be honest, it's things that nobody really would have thought of or picked up on, but they did leave messages. Okay? So they aren't going to come out and say, this is what we're going to do. I do have to admit, though, some of their messages as of late are very obvious, but everybody writes it off as conspiracy theory and they laugh and they don't pay attention to it. Now, there are also occasions, because they know now that people know about it and people are watching it, where they do it and it's a false alarm. We find Illuminati symbolism and then nothing happens. And so everybody's going around saying, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Then it doesn't happen. So they do that as well now because we have so caught on to this symbolism. There's so much being broadcasted about it all over the internet. Okay, that now they have to kind of confuse people a little bit. It's kind of like the boy that cried wolf. They'll put the message out there on purpose as a false message, and then everybody says it's going to happen, then it does not happen. So, this could be, of course, them leaving us a message, but it could be a false alarm message in order that when the real deal does happen, everybody will say, oh, yeah, right. This is what you've been saying, or this is what they've been saying, and nothing happened. And then they don't believe it. Nobody prepares. And then boom, it happens and everyone's caught by surprise. So that is also a good possibility we have to look at. So moving forward with the information that Michael Snyder shares here, and I have another article pulled up to share some more details with you about, but let's look into what he says first, because it's very interesting and very coincidental, to say the least. For months, much of the speculation focused on other symbols on the cover, but now there is a renewed interest in this cover based on the two arrows that are stuck in the ground in the lower right-hand corner. It was an article by James Bailey that brought this to my attention, writes Michael Snyder, and I have to say that I am intrigued. Perhaps these two numbered arrows mean something, and perhaps they don't. But I find it hard to believe that they are there by accident. Here is a close-up of that section of the cover. Okay, you see first 11.5, second 11.3. Now there is significance to the order in which these arrows are placed. 11.5 first, 11.3 second. Listen to what they say. Could 11.5 and 11.3 be references to November 5th and November 3rd? Okay, well, people back in January were speculating about that. But now something else has happened that makes it even more plausible that it could very well be pointing to November the 5th and November the 3rd. The official story is that they do not. The editor of The Economist says these numbers are related to targets for the Chinese economy. Now, here's what he said. The editor of The Economist said the arrows are taken from the graphic illustrating the story of China's economy, the numbers to watch, and our Chinese targets. As it happens, the numbers on the graphic were adjusted in the fact-checking process after the cover went to press. Perhaps he's telling the truth. Then again, perhaps he is not. Or, and I would add, that maybe it's one of those misleading things too, where we're all looking at November the 3rd, okay, or November the 5th, and then nothing happens just so we can all look stupid. And then, like the boy that cried wolf, when it really does happen on a different date, we're going to be caught by surprise. Okay, so we have to take all these things into account. Arrows can be used to target something, but they can also be used to attack. And these arrows are stuck in the ground at an angle which could be pointing to a decline or a fall of some sort. We shall see what happens. I do think this is interesting to note that U.S. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew originally said, now this is the new information, okay, that I mentioned. Okay, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew originally said that the day of reckoning for the U.S. debt ceiling was going to be on November 5th. So that's what he first said. But now he says that it is going to be on November the 3rd. The following comes from CNBC. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew said Monday he worries that waiting until the last minute to raise the nation's borrowing authority could result in an accident that would be terrible. Last week, Lew said the U.S. debt ceiling will be exhausted November 3rd, 2 days before previously estimated. In a letter to congressional leaders, he added that a remaining cash balance of less than $30 billion would swiftly deplete. Our best estimate is November the 3rd is when we'll exhaust what we call extraordinary measures. Those are things we can do to manage things. I will run out of things that I can manage on November 3rd, Lew told CNBC's Squawk Box. So a whole lot of things there. Okay, but notice the order in which things took place. It was first announced that it would take place on November the 5th, but now it's been rescheduled for November the 3rd. And let's go back up here and look. November the 5th is listed first. November the 3rd is listed second, if these two arrows and the numbers upon them do indeed represent dates. Okay, so that would be November the 5th, November the 3rd. Another very interesting symbol on the cover is a partially obscured game entitled Panic. Clearly visible near the top of this game are the words Federal Reserve. And another word that is only partly visible starts with the letters CHI or Chi. Could that be a reference to China? I don't think so. I definitely believe it is a reference to China, but I think what Chi would stand for would be the name of the Chinese president. Okay, his name is pronounced Chi. Okay, XI, it's pronounced Chi. Google pronunciation and put his name in the search bar and it will show you the pronunciation. It will speak it for you. His name is pronounced Chi. Okay, so either way it's China, but I think it stands for his name. Again, China plays a huge important role in the global economy. Certainly, we have already seen financial panic in China this year. At one point, the Chinese stock market was down about 40%. Did this cover warn of the Chinese stock market panic in advance? The following is how the editor of The Economist explained why the panic game was included on the cover. Here's what he said. Where might you find the financial crisis? Euro, Fed Reserve, and China finance section. Very interesting. Another extremely unsettling symbol that is very prominently displayed on the cover is a picture of the Pied Piper. Do many of you remember the Pied Piper of Hamelin? I remember that when I was a kid. It's a creepy story, but of course, when I was a kid, I didn't understand it that way, but I do now. The following is an excerpt from a piece that the Vigilant Citizen put together back in January when this cover first appeared. The presence of the Pied Piper on this 2015 themed cover is downright unsettling. The Pied Piper of Hamelin is a German legend about a man who used his magical flute to lure away the children of the city of Hamelin, never to be seen again. Now, we know magic is always associated, whether it's called white magic or black magic, it's all evil and it all comes from the kingdom of hell. This folkloric figure dating from the Middle Ages is said to represent either massive death by plague or catastrophe or a movement of massive immigration. It also perfectly represents today's youth being lured and mystified by the music of mass media. Conveniently enough, there's a small boy right under the piper's flute. Interestingly enough, many of you have probably seen or heard about the cryptic paintings and the artwork at the Denver airport. Now, I've been to the Denver airport and that airport is huge. Okay, so I did not see the murals on the walls. It's pretty evil. If you go Google that, if you've never seen it, there's pictures of dead children and caskets and all sorts of things. Okay, so this is something to definitely pay attention to. Why on earth do they have the Pied Piper of Hamelin in this picture with a small boy right underneath of it? And in fact, it looks like the Pied Piper is looking down at him. Let me just show you that real quick. Right here, you can see the Pied Piper. He's leaning over with his flute, and he's looking down or leaning right over this child here. Now, to the right of that is another kid, but there's a whole nother story on that, which I included in my last video when this first came out. A kid eating, I think it had to do with GMOs and poisons in our food and so forth. So you can see that there. It is interesting to note that we have witnessed a massive influx of Islamic refugees into Europe since the time of the publication of this magazine. Could there be a connection? Now, finally, Michael writes about the Cheshire Cat. Right next to Barack Obama's left leg on the cover, we find a Cheshire Cat. This is the exact image that illustrator John Tenniel drew in 1866 for Alice in Wonderland, which, by the way, if you don't know, is caked with Luciferian Illuminati symbolism. And once you understand that, and once you know about that stuff, you'll see Alice in Wonderland much differently. It's more chilling, and it's not as cute and innocent. The Cheshire Cat is known for having an evil, mischievous grin, and in the novel, Alice never really could figure out what the cat was up to. Could this be an indication of how the elite view themselves and their mysterious plans for the rest of us? In fact, if you've ever watched Alice in Wonderland, I'm assuming most of you have, you oftentimes see the glowing eyes before the body appears. And when we think of the Illuminati or the Luciferian global elitist, we think of the eyes, such as the all-seeing eye, okay? On this incredible cover, we also see Angela Merkel, the star of the crisis in Greece, and I'm going to discuss something about her in a second here. Vladimir Putin, the star of the crisis in Syria. Hillary Clinton, probably the number one choice of the elite to be the next president. Boy, we're getting a lot about Hillary Clinton, by the way. Barack Obama and a mushroom cloud. And I further discussed some of those points in my previous video back in January. In the end, perhaps it's just a coincidence that so many of these symbols related so closely to events that actually happened during 2015. So perhaps it's just a coincidence, but that seems like a whole slew of coincidences. And perhaps the numbers 11.5 and 11.3 will prove to be rather meaningless after all. Now, Michael also adds, I certainly can't prove that they have anything to do with any particular dates, and the elite would not openly admit it even if they did. But if something does happen during the first week of November, a lot of people are going to be asking some very hard questions. Personally, I have a very bad feeling about the month of November, writes Michael. What about you? Well, it could also be one of those things which I mentioned where they're putting out a message so that it gets broadcasted all over the place and everybody's watching these dates. People are speculating. People are putting out videos saying bombs are going to hit on that day. The economy is going to crash on that day. Jesus is coming back on that day. The tribulation starts on that day. Whatever the case may be, the sky is going to fall on that day. The earth's going to rip open on that day. So there's going to be a whole slew of different videos and articles that are going to come out about those dates. And then those dates are going to come and nothing happens. And then it's like the boy that cried wolf, as I previously stated. What I think is we should watch these dates and be prayerful about them because we do know that things are going to happen. The thing of it is I spoke about it just a little bit ago. We are so wise now, many of us, to their symbolism and what they do. And I do have to admit, this cover is quite obvious, very obvious. Okay, so it could be something. But then we had all this stuff where stuff didn't happen over the past few years and people were saying that it was going to happen. I've shared a lot of that with you where I've put out videos saying this is what so-and-so says is going to happen. This person said this is going to happen. That person said it's going to happen. Is it going to happen? I don't know, is what I would say. Let's pray about it. So who knows? We might get caught unaware. Maybe nobody will believe it this time. or maybe nothing will happen on those dates and something will happen the following month, or maybe it will be November of 2016. I don't know. I do know it's pretty creepy. It's definitely something interesting and something to watch. Now, let me share with you quickly the other article that I came across. All right, so now let's focus on Angela Merkel. Once again, we see her hands in an Illuminati position. It says right here, take note of German Chancellor Angela Merkel on the front with her hands making the Masonic sign of a pyramid in the center of the picture. After this issue appeared, the Rothschild bought the magazine Charlie Hebdo and staged the fake massacre, according to this article, of its staff over a Mohammed cartoon. After this fake incident, Rothschild puppet politicians were ordered to march in Paris. Note Angela Merkel in the below picture of that march, making exactly the same hand sign as in the Economist cover. You can see that right here. See how she's standing there looking down, making the same hand motion. Now let's take another look once again at the Economist picture. It's a little bit more vivid here and pronounced than it is here, but it's very similar. So that's one thing I wanted to highlight as well. And this was found on a website called sitsshow.blogspot.com. It says Stillness in the Storm. So very interesting that this Economist issue is once again making headlines in the alternative media. It is definitely something that is noteworthy and interesting. I will say once again, as I previously stated, this could be one of those boy who cried wolf type incidences where they are indeed giving us messages, but at the same time, knowing that many people are onto this and watching for it because it is very blatant and obvious. I mean, how more blatant could it be? Or they're being blatant because they want those of us putting it out there to look like fools so that when those dates come, nothing happens. And then when the real event does indeed happen and they leave their signs and symbols somewhere, people are going to broadcast it and then nobody's going to listen because it'll be like the boy that cried wolf. One more little thing that was noteworthy that I found personally a little interesting was about the cover being reminiscent of the eerie image on the album cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which was a color photo taken in a studio of the four Beatles wearing band uniforms surrounded by life-size cardboard cutouts of themselves in suits, as well as those of famous personalities, both living and dead. So take a good look once again at the Economist cover photo, and then look here at the Beatles album cover from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So you can see how it looks very reminiscent of this. Now, the article mentions the Beatles, of course, are in color, as are some of the cardboard figures, while other figures are in black and white. There doesn't seem to be a discernible reason for why some are in black and white because they include people that are both dead, Karl Marx, and alive, Bob Dylan. And it mentions The Economist, The World in 2015 cover also has various figures in color and black and white with one difference. Only the heads and faces of some are in black and white, while their bodies are in color, which gives their faces a gray, drained of blood, Walking Dead quality, kind of like zombies. The black and white heads are a majority, and they include both the living, such as Barack Obama, and the dead, Winston Churchill. Vigilant Citizen thinks that those in black and white appear to be part of the elite, including the ISIS guy who probably works for them, and those in color are outsiders. Is this how the elite perceives the world? Okay, so you can see what they're talking about. The bodies are in color while just the heads are in black and white. So I just thought that was a little interesting. I never put those two together in my mind. About the Beatles cover and the Economist cover being so similar in a certain sense. So I thought I would share that with you as well, just out of interest more than anything else. So regardless of what happens, Here's the deal. We need to at least be prepared. We should always be prepared no matter what comes. We should always be prepared for any tragedy, whether it be a natural disaster, a man-made occurrence, whatever the case may be. We should be prepared. So we should be prepared, be prayerful, and stay close to Jesus Christ at all times. Those are things we should always do. So let's just be aware of what's going on in the world in comparison to Bible prophecy and how it will affect our lives and our loved ones in these end times. And as always, God bless you.